Hey everyone, welcome back to another video of verified gains. Hope everyone had a good week and a good weekend. I know it's been a while, not a long while, but it's been about a little over a week since I've posted my last video. And the main reason is, of course, I was busy, but secondly, I also had to think very carefully and think very hard about how I want to make the next video. Okay. Um, However, in the meantime, I did post on YouTube as a post, I think once or twice regarding my troll buying opportunities. So we'll cover that later today as well. So let's dive right into the Bitcoin chart. Now, last time I posted was end of August, and since then, we actually had a pretty sad week, okay? But things are turning out to be all right. And what I mean by that is since last week, or the last time I posted a video, end of August, we actually for a while did break down below the $110,000 support line. However, in September, we're able to resume above it, consolidate, and now we're resuming back towards the upside, hopefully towards $117,000 this coming week. Now, a lot of important things are going to happen this week, and really the main one for us, for me, is whether the Bitcoin cycle top is still going to happen in mid-September. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, that does not seem to be the case. I'm going to make two arguments as to why. Um, the reason I first proposed the mid-September cycle top was basically, based on only one of the four indicators that I'm using currently, right? So it was basically we take the number of days from the low of the bear market to the halving date. So that's around 515 days. And then we extrapolate that from the halving date to the future. And that's around September, 15th, 17th, around there. So mid-September. Now we're only a week away from that proposal, from that hypothesis. And I highly, highly doubt at this point that we're going to see such signal. Um, you know, if it were going to be the cycle top, then the argument is there should have been other indicators that would have pointed in that direction. But I just don't think this hypothesis is going to remain valid. However, some of you may decide, excuse me, may decide that you want to stick to that plan and perhaps think about capitalizing some of your assets in 1 week. I mean, we would have to see some sort of ridiculous price action to the upside, some exponential price action to the upside for people to be convinced that that is the cycle top. Another point of view could be, well, it could be much like 2021, where it was not a quote unquote blow off top, although I would argue that that's a pretty substantial move right there. Then people didn't really believe it, and then they saw the second top and they said, okay, maybe there's going to be another explosive movement, but turned out that was not the case. And maybe that's what we're seeing right now, okay? I really thought hard about this. I thought about, okay, should I only leave zero point 0.1 Bitcoin and sell the rest? Should I rotate them into Ethereum or Solana? And it's been a difficult decision. Right now, I have not made up my mind just yet. I do want to see how the Bitcoin price moves over the next 1 week before I make a further decision regarding that. So that's where I stand with Bitcoin. Now, if the halving date hypothesis no longer is valid moving forward, which tells me that indeed there could be an extended Bitcoin cycle. Okay. And if that is the case, then what else should we be looking at, right? So, by the way, I know a lot of influencers have, not so surprisingly, deviated away from the M2 money shift hypothesis. People are not talking about it anymore, which is fine, which is fine. But I still pay attention to it. And when I do look at the M2 money shift, that also tells me that the mid-September Bitcoin cycle top is less likely. Now, what was the previous assumption? The previous assumption is that, if we set it to, 70 to 82 days, um, shifted to the right, then that would, somehow show us, like, which direction the Bitcoin price is heading into. And previously, when we did not have this much data, when it was only looking like the M2 money shift was declining, our local top was September, mid-September, okay, mid to late September. And that's why we had said, oh, look, I think there's a high likelihood that the Bitcoin cycle top would be in September because that was going to be the top for M2 money shift. And by the way, if you do look back, and I know this past cycle is highly correlated, but even if you look back at 2021, we can quickly tell that that is actually not the case. See, here's the top, here's the second top, but the M2 money supply or the M2 money shift continued to go up and up. Okay, so number one, it doesn't hold true. Even if we go back to 2017, you can tell that yes, over here, the local peak does somewhat correlate with the Bitcoin cycle top for that year. However, the M2 money shift did hit a higher high later in 2018. And so you guys are welcome to look at this yourself on TradingView, but let's go back to the current situation right now. And it looks like, if we zoom in, okay, here, it was a local top, but right now, we're actually right there, okay? So we're at the previous all-time high, quote unquote. And now it looks like it's going to go up further. Even if it doesn't, it's already hit the previous all-time high here. So what is the date then? So now it's been extended to end of November. Okay. So if this correlation with the Bitcoin price holds true, then we will continue to see increased price into end of November. So that is where the M2 money shift hypothesis stands as of now. So further cementing the argument for holding on to Bitcoin rather than selling in September. Okay. Now let's look at the third indicator. So I'm going to get rid of this. So let's look at the third indicator, which I've told you guys before is RSI 90 on the daily chart, right? So what's the hypothesis there? I'm waiting for the RSI 90, okay? By the way, if you just click on this, you guys will see that the RSI-based moving average is the yellow line. And when that touches, okay, 70, okay, on the RSI chart over here, then that is going to be around the time when we're at the all-time high or the Bitcoin cycle top. Same thing back in 2017. Do you see how the moving average kisses 70 on the RSI chart, which correlates with around the time that we hit Bitcoin cycle top? So going back to present time, where are we? We're not even close. Okay, we're not even close. So that tells me right now is not the time. Unless we see some ridiculous exponential price action to the upside over the next 7 days. But I think the likelihood is low. And what is my favorite indicator? So let's take a look at Pi Cycle Top indicator. So here. So Pi Cycle Top indicator, oh, it was actually quite scary last week because if you zoom in over here, look at this. End of August, we actually went down below the 111-day moving average. Now, in the history of Bitcoin, this late into the Bitcoin cycle, have we've never seen it go below 111-day moving average this late in the cycle. So that actually had me worried. I was like, wow, maybe the Pi cycle top indicator is not valid anymore, and we're just going to crash from here. Now, luckily, it looks like we are trying to resume back above it. The scale is a little off, so let me see if I can. So if you zoom in over here, it looks like now, we tried to retest, got rejected, and then now we're trying to resume back above 111-day moving average once more. So we need this because this whole pattern over here where we're playing, below the 111-day moving average was very, very bearish. Okay. This is not the time to dollar cost average unless you're absolutely positive. Okay, that Bitcoin was going to go up. But back then, things were looking very dismal. But finally, we're staying above it. So hopefully, when we form the new candle, we're going to be above, consolidating above the 111-day moving average. And that's just the beginning. Guys, that's just the beginning. I mean, we're not even anywhere near the green trend line, which is the 350-day moving average times 2. And that's where we want to be at the very least, okay, which is around $190,000. Um, but for now, I'm only looking at this indicator once in a while because, I mean, we're not even close. We're not even close. So let's just get rid of that because these days I'm just paying more attention to the M2 money shift. And, there's no magical formula, but I try to set this to around 82 days. Okay, so this is how I set up my chart. So you guys are seeing everything that I'm doing. Okay. Um, in terms of macro, what are some big news? So obviously the Fed chair is going to announce a potential rate cut later this month. So everybody is sort of paying attention to that. The job market is not looking great. So that is more pressure on the Fed chair to cut the interest rate, which he really should have done a long, long time ago. So, too late, but no surprise there. Okay. And let's look at the Bitcoin dominance. So today is a bit of a long video because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover, and we need to be very strategic because I had previously proposed a mid-September Bitcoin cycle top. So if I'm telling you guys that I'm not exiting in September, we need to discuss all the strategies and all the contingency plans. Okay. So what's going on with Bitcoin dominance percentage, right? So what's our previous hypothesis? We should review that. When the Bitcoin dominance reaches 44.0%, that is when I'm going to exit my altcoins. Okay, so that includes Ethereum, Turbo, Solana, POPCAT, Trollcoin, etc., etc. I have like 20 to 30 coins that I hold. So, so that is the point where we're going to supposedly exit. However, we're still at 58% in terms of Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin is showing very strong dominance still, albeit, drop from the high of, high 60s back in June. And we continue to go down. For now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin's not going to go up further. It just means that altcoins are also performing very well. And that brings to my next topic. Let's take a look at Ethereum. So let's turn this. So Ethereum is actually doing pretty well. It's holding this line, the support line at $4,000 very well. I would even argue that there's a local support around 4,200. And it looks like, things are going to pick up. And I know, you should really look into Tom Lee's interviews on YouTube. He does bring up a lot of good point about the future of Ethereum. I'm just not a huge fan of Ethereum. I mean, I see everybody's argument. I just still feel like the fees are, too expensive and too slow for the average retail user. Maybe for, the institutional investors, it makes a lot of sense. But for the retail investors, I still think the other layer one, such as Solana, is way more useful. So let's talk about Solana. Solana doing very well. I'm very happy with this trend line. So I was actually looking at it just yesterday. Let me adjust it. So here, we've already retested this trend line many, many times, and it looks like, we continue to retest it. However, hopefully starting today, because we're now above the resistance line, well, previous resistance line at 205. Let me change the color to green to depict the support line. Because this is the case, now it looks like we're going to go back up, okay, towards the previous all-time high at 260. And it's been a battle for Solana, but the fact that we're bouncing off of this trend line and we're now back above the support line at 205, the horizontal support line, gives me great confidence that Solana will perform strongly this coming week. Okay, so we don't have to look at this trend line anymore, but things are looking very good. Hopefully, we see some explosive movement to the upside. And that's going to be very good for the Solana meme coins as well. So POPCAT, of course, being a major one that I hold. So here, same thing. Last week it looked very bad for meme coins in general, but including PopCat. But I will say the community is very strong because we tend to hold support very well. Now, I still want to see the price above 35 cents. As you can see, the intraday variability has been pretty small for PopCat. So people are holding on to it, but it's not like we're getting a whole new crowd that are, uh, making the price explode exponentially. So we're not there yet. And perhaps it's because people are still waiting on Solana's price movement. They're still waiting on Bitcoin's price movement. So it's not meme coin season just yet. But I'm just simply happy with the fact that we're able to hold this line above 20 cents without dropping further. Next, let's look at Troll. As you guys know, initially I started off as, okay, I'm just going to put in some play money, but I really like the community. I really like the meme, and I do strongly feel that it could perform as well as the other major ones like Doge or Pepe. At least Pepe. I feel like it's on the same spectrum as Pepe in terms of the history behind the meme, the the potential community. Um, and this is not one of those, at least as far as I'm aware, it's not one of those, bundled, coins that are being shilled. They're simply, pump and dump rug pull schemes. It just doesn't give me that same impression. I think this is one of those strong performers, that are actually based on a real meme. So I'm a huge fan. I've been buying on big dips, and I'm thinking about maybe buying more today because, I'll kind of walk you through my thought process. So let's see here. So let's first draw horizontal, okay, support line. So it was around 13 cents, okay, end of, beginning of September was very scary times for Troll coin. I thought I was actually going to maybe dump further from here, but we're actually, after this initial consolidation phase, now we're actually forming a new phase over here. And this is actually usually very bullish for meme coins because when we're able to consolidate strongly, over a long period of time, once we explode out of that phase, I mean, we're talking about, you know, 3 to 5x returns. And like I said, perhaps the next stage is the $1 billion market cap, which should be around 5x from current price. So we're talking about a very good return. I would even argue that there's a local resistance line around here, okay? So it's going to be important to see if we can break out of this, okay? Now, if we can consolidate above 18, 19 cents, then that would be a good opportunity for me to buy. Right now, I'm just going to monitor for now, see if we can actually form at the very least higher highs when we look at this. So here is the previous local high, and I want to see us form a higher high, something like this, okay? Maybe even a higher high, retest the resistance, which at that point will be a support line, but at least it will be a higher low. So maybe I should actually draw this out for you. So maybe like something like this. So you can see that it would essentially be so really what I'm looking for, okay, is sort of this trend where, okay, I'm forming a higher high, right? Now retesting, but it is still a higher low, okay? So maybe, let's say that this actually happens. So at this point where they're retesting, this would be a great buying opportunity for me. So that's what I'll be paying attention to. By the way, please let me know if you guys like this sort of, me drawing on the chart and explaining like my thought process. Please comment in the section below and just let me know because without feedback, I don't know what you guys want from these videos. So I'm basically just, speaking my mind in a podcast version. And that's why my videos are, not heavily edited because I'm just sort of, just talking what's on my mind. Anyways, that was an extra long video, but hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you guys have any feedback, look, by the way, I've started to notice that, some people dislike my video, which I appreciate. If you guys like disagree or don't like something that I'm saying, like let me know. Let's have a conversation. Because I'm not always going to be right. And, when I'm wrong, it's a great opportunity for me to learn from you guys. And, it's very possible that some of you guys know more than me. And that is always going to be the case. So I love to learn. I love to share my thoughts. So, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening in. If you guys have not subscribed yet and you guys are into crypto, Solana, POPCAT, Troll Coin, make sure to subscribe so you guys don't miss out. I'll see you guys later. Have a great week.